Hey, y'all.
Hello.
Victor, I see a bunch of emails from you. Are you recording right now?
Yes.
Okay. We can, I'll answer them when I get to it. I can't have too many things open or my computer dies.
Dang. Yeah, there's no need to worry about it right now. It's
Okay.
work for another day, so.
Excellent.
That's how my brains work. Too many things open and I'm no good anymore.
Too many windows open. Too many.
Too many windows. Look, I'm folding a wetsuit. That's the only one thing I can do at a time.
A wetsuit?
A wetsuit.
Who's going diving?
I do, or I used to dive, but this was from stand-up paddleboarding. That's because I'm so cool.
Or not cool. That's a matter of opinion.
I like scary things. It's volunteer work.
Oh, that is nice. Hey, Victor, for tonight.
Yeah? What's up?
Oh, I hear cats screaming. Wow, and this is going to be published. Well, never mind. Never mind.
Okay.
Excuse me while I go pet manage. I just yelled at Joel and asked why I hear animals screaming, cats screaming, and he said, no, those are kids.
You'll hear that here too. They're Nathan's kids, and we just die laughing.
Classic.
Nathan.
Oh, Nathan. You're screaming kids. So how many people do we have for public comment today?
That's a good question.
We have 4 people on my list for public comment.
I like 4.
4's good.
4's okay.
4 is very good. Victor, are you going to drive the mute button and the scrolling of the packet?
Yeah, I'll handle the whole meeting. I feel like I'm getting pretty good at it.
Do it. Jane, where'd you go paddling? Where'd you go sup?
Yeah, we sucked out to 11 Mile. So, of course, you have to have the wetsuit because it's cold.
Actually, that sounds kind of fun.
It was nice. It really was a good day. Not today. Today's the day I got to hear that, well, maybe you'll all get furloughed, maybe not. Don't know.
Oh, that's exciting.
All right. So excited.
So hockey isn't a thing right now?
Well, we still have a team and we're looking to start playing, so at least they're on board. It's all our other sports that are like, not so much.
Okay, we're rooting for you.
Thank you. It's a little nerve-wracking.
That's awful. I'm sorry.
It'll be all right, one way or another.
Yeah, but the undecided.
That's the hardest part, is just the not knowing.
Yeah. Okay, there are all the people. I'm gonna mute, and Victor and Jane, you'll recognize me when I needed.
Sounds good. Well, Margaret's here, Johnny's here.
You guys hear me right now?
I can hear you. Victor, have we heard from Catherine or from Chris Quinn?
No, I do not believe so.
Okay. Well, I would assume that one or both of them are on their way. But to that end, it's 7 o'clock or 7:01 by the computer. So let's call this meeting to order. This is the Town of Green Mountain Falls Regular Board of Trustees meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 1st. It is 7:01. All trustees are present except for Catherine Guthrie and Chris Quinn. And if they come in later, we will make note of that. At this time, would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to this agenda as presented?
This is Deani. I just wanted to make note that some of the correspondence that's attached to this agenda, it was intended to be meant for the last meeting.
I think what happened, if I'm not mistaken, is it was part of it was given during the meeting, so then it was too late for that agenda. But part of it, you're right, should have been with the previous agenda. So now we're at least caught up, and the correspondence is out there publicly as it should be. So thank you. If there are no changes, deletions, or corrections besides that, I would move to approve as amended.
No, second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Item 3 is the consent agenda. Now I'm so confused where I am. Item 3 is the consent agenda. Sorry, long month. This is bringing to the record the accounts payable for August 5th through September 1st. Approve the Board of Trustees meeting minutes from August 4th. Item C is the Colorado Interactive Letter of Acceptance, and D is the Water on Mars agreement. Angie, would you describe a bit item C and then follow that with D, please?
Absolutely. So item C is a Colorado Interactive Letter of Acceptance. That is our partner who works with SIPA, the State Internet Portal Authority. This is just acceptance of the project completion for our new website. And this was no cost to us. Item D is a Water on Mars proposal for installation of a lake valve regulator. So that basically regulates the, for the folks that don't know, it regulates the level of the lake automatically instead of them having to go and manually do that. There is a $9,000 grant from Fishing is Fun that was awarded to the town before I arrived, actually. So we have till December 31st to complete this project. $3,000 is our match. So that's where the 12,000 comes in.
And we have the 3,000 in our budget, correct?
It is in the Parks and Rec maintenance budget.
All right. And just for those who weren't here then, this valve was awarded as part of the larger lake project that we presented to Fishing is Fun. We obviously didn't get the entire grant, but we got this much. And this is a really pretty important piece because it will allow the lake to automatically close when we're in a rain situation, and we won't be dependent on anyone running down there and shutting the valves and changing it. And Tom from Water on Mars is actually very well acquainted with the system and explained it to me in the first place. And I am glad that we are going ahead with this. Board, do you have any further questions on the consent agenda?
No.
Seeing none, move to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 And Catherine's here. Hi, Catherine. And that is accepted.
Yay.
Item 4A is the reading of the 2020 Creek Week proclamation. As we get that pulled up, a little background on Creek Week. We have participated every year since the Fountain Watershed started putting this out. And basically what it is it's a litter removal and recognition of how important our watershed is. And I will read this proclamation recognizing Creek Week 2020. Whereas the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado is fortunate to have extensive and diverse natural resources such as forests, grasslands, riparian areas, lakes, creeks, and a wide variety of open spaces. And whereas the Fountain Creek watershed is a unique and important resource and asset to the residents and visitors of Fountain and the Pikes Peak region. Whereas the Fountain Creek watershed flood control and Greenway district is partnering with the city of Colorado Springs, El Paso County, Pueblo County, the cities of Manitou Springs, Fountain, and the towns of Monument and Green Mountain Falls, and numerous community organizations to coordinate the 7th annual Creek Week cleanup, which will encourage the protection, restoration, and maintenance of the Fountain Creek watershed. And whereas this 9-day litter cleanup effort runs September 26th through October 4th, 2020, throughout the watershed, and is now the largest cleanup effort in our state. And whereas Creek Week programs and activities are designed to raise awareness about the littering issue within our watershed, to encourage organizations and individuals to collect litter and debris to make Fountain Creek and the watershed cleaner and safer. And whereas businesses, churches, schools, nonprofits, neighborhood associations, youth groups, service clubs, and individuals are encouraged to form a creek crew to clean up at a Creek Week project site. And whereas Creek Week litter removal activities will reduce pollution in our creeks and clogs in our waterways that can lead to flooding, provide for a safer drinking water supply, and enhance wildlife habitat and property values. Now, therefore, the town board of trustees of the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado, hereby proclaim September 26th through October 4th, 2020 as Creek Week in Green Mountain Falls, and encourage our citizens to help protect, restore, and maintain our waterways by participating in Creek Week activities. Done this day, 1st of September 2020, Green Mountain Falls, Colorado. Board, do you have any questions about Creek Week?
Are there any specific things that, specific events or things that we do in town historically?
Historically, we designate a day. It's usually falling on that last Saturday in September. And we get together usually at the pool, end of town, and we clean along the public creek and all the parks from here to the end of Lake Park. Now, and sometimes when we've had a lot of volunteers, we go a little further and clean up the sides of the roads, but at least we get all along the parks from Pool Park to Gazebo Lake Park. I did send this to the elementary school and asked if they would be interested in partnering with us for a day. But with COVID being the driver of everything, I don't know what's going to happen, but at the very least, that last Saturday, we usually gather about 9 o'clock at the pool. And depending on what they say, I'll probably be sending out an announcement to say they're with us or they're not, but we will be doing something for Creek Week. I've lost my agenda online because online is amazing.
I believe that there's a video, Allie, that goes with this proclamation.
Oh, share a video,
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead
yay.
and show the video, and then if I could just say a couple words real quick.
please. I didn't know you were on. Welcome.
Surprise. Good evening, everyone. My name is Allie Shook. I'm the Watershed Outreach Coordinator for the Fountain Creek Watershed District. And as Mayor Newberry announced, this is our 7th annual Creek Week cleanup. It's the biggest cleanup in the state. And we are just so proud of this effort that not only removes litter, but it really nurtures that sense of community that we're really good at doing together, rolling up our sleeves and getting to work. And, you know, we're not going to let COVID stop us. If people feel comfortable being outside, socially distanced with their mask and gloves on, then we'll be happy to provide bags and gloves and buckets and trash grabbers. So our website is fountaincreekweek.com. Registration will be opening next week. So go ahead and jot that down as a reminder for next week. You'll see a list of public events where you can just go ahead and contact the crew leader directly. Or if you choose to have your own small group, maybe just your family, your household wants to go out, we'd be happy to help coordinate that cleanup on the day and time of your choosing. That's the beauty of Creek Week 2 is it's not just one day. There's no excuses. You have 9 days to get out there and do your part. So we made a quick 30-second video. I'll let you enjoy that here next.
Through October 4th from Palmer Lake to Pueblo and beyond. All ages and abilities can participate in this socially distanced, outdoors, fun, and rewarding activity. Trash bags, gloves, grabbers, and more will be provided. Register your Creek Crew or join a public cleanup at www.fountaincreekweek.com.
Is everybody able to hear that?
Yep, that was great. Allie, thank you.
Yeah,
we're happy.
Green Mountain Falls for being a partner in this and being right there along the creek. I think it's a lot more obvious for people in your community. Oh, there goes my cat. People in your community, because you see the creek on a daily basis. And some of us here in Colorado Springs or other parts of the watershed don't have that connection to our waterways. And so this is another way to connect people with that resource.
Well, we're proud to have been part of this since the beginning. And the town's always done their part. And we will again, I'm sure. So thank you, Allie. I appreciate you being on tonight.
You bet. Appreciate it. Take care.
You too. Board, I would move to approve this 2020 Creek Week proclamation.
I'll second.
And all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 And that motion passes. We'll be getting details to follow. Item B is consideration of resolution 2015 in opposition to the National Popular Vote Compact, which will appear on the 2020 general election ballot. I was first approached by the town of Monument and by the mayor, John Wilson, about opposing the national popular vote. And this really doesn't depend on what side of the aisle you feel that your politics are on. This is really, really to protect Colorado's vote. Because if we were to vote to approve, and this resolution, by the way, doesn't bind anyone to how you vote. How you vote is your personal privilege, and this doesn't bind you to anything. But this resolution really is a way for us to stand up and say, we're not going to throw our vote to the largest players in the country. Because right now, if we went along with national popular vote, our vote gets absorbed by basically California and New York. They're the two largest players in the country. There's a cool illustration. California, New York, Texas, Florida. Great places, right? But we're Colorado, and we want to have our vote for what we believe. When the founders set up this country, they put into place what's called the Electoral College. And what that does is it breaks up that concentration of political power and actually gives Colorado and all the smaller states some footing, some voice in the national arena. If you want to look at it in a microcosm, Green Mountain Falls is a member of the Pikes Peak Transportation Authority. We're in there with Rama and Manitou and Colorado Springs and El Paso County. Well, obviously, somewhere as small as us doesn't have the political clout of Colorado Springs and El Paso County. But on the Transit Authority, we have a vote. We have a say. We get to represent what Green Mountain Falls wants. We don't have to go along with El Paso County just because they're the biggest. And I think it's really important that we as citizens maintain that our votes count. Because if we go with national popular vote, your vote gets absorbed in California. It doesn't matter what you voted for. You're going with the bigger guys. So obviously, I've read a lot about this, and what this resolution does is it just says, you know what? Colorado is full of independent thinkers. And for me, I brought it forth to you because I would like to see our town get behind the idea of we are independent thinkers. Board, do you have any questions about this?
Yeah, so I guess I have a question. You know, this was brought up as, after reading about it, as kind of a counter to legislative actions that were done by larger governmental agencies. And basically, it sounds like the people that people wanted to bring this up for the ballot because they had concerns about that legislative action that was taken. And so I guess my concern with us endorsing something like this is that I don't know what the people of Green Mountain Falls, what percentage of them are for this, are against this. It's really an individual decision. And so, you know, in endorsing this, I don't see how it benefits the town. And what I see is us making a decision similar to what the kind of larger government did in creating this in the first place. And that really many of the people who are going to be voting should be the ones to decide that themselves.
And they absolutely will. I mean, this doesn't bind any one of us, even on this board, to vote for or against. It's not binding. It's just basically saying, you know, Colorado, you can have a plus or a minus, but these are our opinions. So I appreciate what you're saying. I do. Monument has voted to support this. A lot of the smaller towns are voting to support it. And as much as anything, it's a bit of a straw poll to say that, you know, standing in opposition happens a lot in small towns. So either way, Margaret, do you have anything to add?
No, I appreciate Gianni's observation that it shouldn't be just us. It should be understanding what the town is. Is there a specific deadline for this? Could we put some feelers out to see what constituents think?
We could have it in the October. It's just that with the mail-in ballots and so forth, you just want to have it somewhere public before ballots are out. So again, it's not binding. It's, I don't want to say public service, but it's just out there in the public. Catherine?
The research I've done the majority of people across the country have been expressing opposition to the Electoral College for decades. And I think there's still majority of people would like to see at least some reform of the Electoral College rules. That's pretty much my position. I think some things need to be changed. I'm not really in support of maintaining the status quo.
Well, okay, no. Board, so I would move to approve this resolution. The only reason I would ask for a second is that so that we can vote on it, and then it can either be approved or die. So I would move to approve
I will
resolution.
second.
All those in favor vote by saying aye. Well, I vote for it. And all those opposed say no.
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 I would say no with more research.
Well, at this time that would motion would fail. The next item is 4C, and that's the community garden space. Deannie, I think this is yours.
Yeah, so this came up because I had a couple of people just ask about that traffic triangle on Olathe Street. So it's a town open space that it's been historically maintained by community members, and it's an important space I think for our town because it's something that people see right when they enter in from that particular exit off 24. So both residents and non-residents see it as part of kind of their welcome into the city. And so people just had questions about whether or not they're allowed to decorate and maintain it. And I just wanted to bring this up just for discussion. So as a clarification, that I think it would be really helpful just to clarify that we appreciate the community members that have maintained the space and helped make it a welcoming space. And we encourage people to do that in the future. I think that, as part of us trying to have community identity and community pride, I think this is a good space for all of us who live in the town to kind of take pride in a shared space.
As far as I know, no one's ever been opposed to it. It's always just been maintained.
If I could throw one tidbit out, if y'all do approve this, and if anybody that does do the maintenance, if they'd like to just stop by town hall or email us, we can get a volunteer form to fill out, and that makes sure that they're covered under our insurance while they're doing this kind of volunteer work. That's all.
I'm thinking it might be great to have this as part of our parks, to come under that umbrella, so there's some coordination with that space. So it's certainly welcome citizens to participate in maintaining and contributing to that space, but I think it would be great if it was coordinated under the Parks, Recreation and Trails Committee. I know there's some people who've been, I think Dean Heiss has done a lot of work there over the years. I haven't confirmed with John Morgan, but I heard that he planted the lilac bush there. And I guess I don't know if it's officially part of the town's parks, but maybe we could annex it as part of the town parks system. Because it is an important, it is, like you say, it's kind of the welcome, it's a very visible place. And it's also a really good place to run into people. Lots of foot traffic goes through there, and it could be, maybe even a more of a gathering place than it already is.
it's certainly part of town property. You know, that's, and Angie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it obligates the government really to anything, recognize that you can decorate it.
So yes, that is, can you hear me? Okay, yeah, I'm unmuted. So that is in the town right away. So we could do what we want with it. Did that answer your question? You were cutting out a little bit there.
So is, that's okay with me. So is the question just formally approving it as town open space?
Whether if you wanted to formally approve it as a community garden space, and we could, maybe staff could put some advertising out there, or if you wanted to send this over to the Parks Rec Trails Committee, or however y'all want to handle it. Totally up to you.
Well, I kind of think we could do both of those things, is recognize it as town's open space, and have it come under the fold a bit of Parks and Rec, and just, and it mostly, for my part, is so that the people who want to garden will get a volunteer sheet and be covered by the insurance. So that's my motion.
Second that.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 That passes. Item 4D, El Paso Water. For the introduction to El Paso County Discovery Project. Angie, is that you?
These next couple ones here are Julia. They're all planning related.
Okay, great. So Julia, you're on.
Okay, my primary objective here is just to make the board and any citizens who are attending this meeting aware of this effort that is funded by FEMA. So the slides that you have are very brief, but my intention is to get the first couple PowerPoints and a little bit of general information on our website. The end result of this El Paso Discovery Project, which is a combination, like I said, it's funded by FEMA, and it's a risk mapping assessment. The end result, so the scope is being determined still, which is important because if Green Mountain Falls would like a specific scope with as what will be studied, which right now it's narrowed down to about Catamount Creek. I think it's important for people to be aware this is happening and that there will be outreach, significant outreach during this project, but the end result, we really want to make sure to bring in everyone who could be affected by any changes to firm maps, if that's what happens. So this is just kind of a cursory overview. There's a timeline on there, Victor. Yeah, there's a timeline. We're right at the very beginning. We had the kickoff meeting and just kind of identifying issues, and we're still very early on in this. So if the board has any questions, best thing is to really get on the AECOM/the state website and interact with the PM, because I can't answer that many questions about it just yet, but this is happening and this involves the firm maps, and that's important, especially in Green Mountain Falls.
Board, do you have any questions for Julia about this? Well, I think that means we'll just be waiting for more information as it comes up. So thank you for taking this on. The next item is variance B 2020-01.
Okay. So you guys get me a lot tonight. This is a variance for a deck replacement at 10845 Denver Avenue. I think I could have done a far better job explaining and engaging the Planning Commission on this item because it is fairly convoluted and it is a little confusing. So I rewrote a staff memo to the Board of Trustees specifically, just trying to enumerate the events. In the interest of time, I'm happy to not read that, but I'd like a little direction on how the board prefers that I review this because it is a little confusing. This is a variance and a revocable permit at the same address, one after the other.
Well, Catherine and I are probably the only ones who have heard it. So you kind of have to give us more than the Cliff Notes version on this one.
Okay. So as I mentioned, this is on Denver Avenue, and this is none of these details that I'm giving you tonight are new or have changed. The only things that have changed are the two documents that I note in here, and I'll scroll through, I'll show you. The Planning Commission made a recommendation. Those are items 1 through 7. I'll read those at the very end of what I'll try to do a brief staff report. So the existing deck on Denver Avenue, and Victor, if you can, thank you. If you can go to site plan 1, there's an existing deck, was installed circa 1993. It is a non-conforming structure because the variance, we don't have any records of the variance. No one does. Nevertheless, the applicant had a deck built with a variance to avoid the front setbacks. So it's hard because I'm not driving. But if you look, I don't know if everyone is scrolling on their documents. If you look at existing site plan, that's document 1, there's a single existing site plan. You can see that the deck extends beyond the 15-foot setback. The deck needs to be replaced because of age and condition. The applicant proposed 2 possible options for design because as you will see, one design, Victor, can you, so this isn't the best, Victor, there are site plans if you scroll down, 1, 2, and 3. There are 2 options, option A, which extends into the right-of-way a small amount, and option B, which does not. Hey, Victor, let's have me drive. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. All right. So can you see an existing site plan, everyone? Okay. So as you can see, the deck is right here. This is existing. Option A extends a little to the west and to the north. Option A also extends into the right-of-way. We can get into better specifics in a minute. Option B truncates that little corner at the right-of-way. And I believe, and the architect can clarify, it may be at the 1-foot setback and it may be at 0 feet. The variance is for no setback. The pergola noted in the applicant's letter is not being considered because I didn't receive any designs, but it may be considered in the future. We'll just need height and a design. So the zoning variance application requires a letter of explanation to address the strict standards in section 16.709, some of which are to describe the proposed project in detail, describe the reason for pursuing a variance, and explain the benefits to yourself, the neighborhood, and the town, and then explain how the variance is not contrary to the public interest. The important one for a variance really is providing the proof of unique circumstances or conditions and how the strict application of the provisions in our code deprive the applicant of a reasonable use of land or building as described in section 16709. The language is not in this staff report, it's in this staff report right here. So the language a little bit, it's long, but the application condenses that. So the proof of unnecessary hardship as described in 16709 is something else that the applicant is asked to describe. The applicant submitted a letter of explanation and then submitted an additional letter of explanation. And on the specs, they address some of these as well. And the applicants, Mr. and Ms. Von Sant, and their architect is here to explain anything. So the letter is here. I'm not going to read their letter. They can address it. We did receive one, so we have to send out letters to the adjacent property owners. We received one comment letter from a Karen Komorowski, and she wrote in support of the project, and that letter is included for you here. The Planning Commission, it was confusing because there are two options, both of which the variance could apply to. They had a long discussion, and their recommendation at the end was to approve option A, which is this. They're willing to accept option A, which is the preferred alternative, with the following conditions: that the site plans confirm the height, length, and width of the proposed structure. There's something about business licenses, the electronic approval, payment, that the variance be recorded at the county clerk and recorder's office so that we don't revisit this issue ever again, and that we just start avoiding it. That the applicant file as-built plans so that we know what is there. And the Planning Commission added an additional requirement stating that for option A, the applicant must have a professional license survey. I'm happy. So that is the Board of Trustees staff report. The Planning Commission staff report is even longer and more sorted, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
So basically, the Planning Commission has recommended that we approve option A. As I understand it, there's no building into the town right away. It just goes out over above the town right away, correct?
So in order to build, and this is why this is so convoluted, and let me know if you need me to scroll, otherwise, option A that they did recommend approval does extend into the right of way, which would require a revocable permit, which will require a revocable permit to occupy the right of way. So if you can see, this is option A, and that corner does hang out. Their recommendation was that, well, I gave it word for word. I don't want to interpret because those minutes have not been approved yet.
Okay.
But understandably, you may need clarification. So I'm happy to work on that. This got really confusing at Planning Commission.
Okay, so what is the first, let's break down into what is the first question in front of us?
You are looking at just approving a variance for no setbacks. So a setback, so if you can see my cursor, this is the 15 front setback. This is for an R1 10,000 property. The deck would need to extend to the right of way and beyond the 15 front setback, 15-foot front setback. So the variance is to avoid the setbacks to the front. If you look at option A, it does not extend into the side setbacks.
And as many houses are in Green Mountain Falls, even though it says it's up to the road, it's not actually the driven portion of the road, correct?
Yes. So this house in particular, oh, it's there. The pictures are in the revocable. I can pull those up. So Denver Avenue stops. It remains unimproved at. This might help get a picture. Having an actual picture. So this is Denver Avenue. Looking at the home to the right, to the west, is Denver Avenue that remains unimproved. It hasn't been graded. Nevertheless, the public right-of-way does exist there. That might help. There's an aerial view. So the deck, this existing deck that you're looking at, the aerial, it's not a great picture. It does go within 1 foot of the front line, of the front property line. So as you can see, parking and landscaping exists in the right of way. Nevertheless, it remains unimproved to the west. Did I answer your question?
Or do you have further questions for Julia?
So it looks like the setback would be on 2 sides. Would what am I going to say? The new deck enters into part of that 10-foot setback on the, what side is that? There to the left.
So the proposal, and it looks, so the architect, and this is a question for the architect, but the proposal that I originally received showed the front and western side of the deck. This is not a part of, you're referring to the east, Catherine?
Correct.
Trustee Guthrie. Yeah, that is not a part of this improvement. This is just for the front,
Okay.
the front deck and the western side. So the only variance that would be required is for the front property setback.
All right, board, do you have any questions on the variance?
Am I understanding that we're renewing a variance?
No, this is the existing structure is a non-conforming structure as it exists.
Okay.
So it doesn't meet current code standards, and we don't have you are approving a brand new variance for the specific design that would, at the very least, come to either they need a revocable permit to extend into the right of way. Nevertheless, even option B is going to extend to the front property line. It's a brand new variance.
Okay. Thank you.
I would move to approve.
I'll second.
Board, are there any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the variance passes. Now, what's the next portion of the program with this?
Okay, so this is for revocable permit, and revocable permit. This is the 4th revocable you've had this year. This is another portion of that specific project at 10845 Denver Avenue. The Planning Commission the Planning Commission considered this and made a recommendation, conditions 1 through 5, that I can read eventually. This is for the use and occupancy of public property, because a portion of the deck, I believe it's 9.7 square feet, would extend into the right-of-way. And it'll be easier if we go back. Thank you for your patience while I drive the computer. Maybe, Victor, maybe this was your job. Okay, so the revocable is with the variance granted. So in other words, the applicant, and they're allowed to build up to the property line. This portion, 9.42, exceeds the property limits and extends into the public right-of-way. Option A, again, is the preferred alternative. Let's see, so we received an application. This did go through legal review because originally we were just, the applicants and I were discussing vacating a portion of Denver Avenue, a portion of the right-of-way, in order to accommodate the landscaping, parking, and the portion of the deck that extends. But it's not the policy of the town to vacate the right-of-way, even though we can see that Denver Avenue is not improved. That doesn't mean that it won't be one day. It also is access to properties further to the west. The attorney's written opinion, some of which is included in the Planning Commission report, suggests that while a revocable permit is an imperfect, impermanent solution, it may be the best option to accomplish option A for the site plan designs. So this is a revocable permit, and this actually, item 7 on the Board of Trustees staff report mentions that our section 18, which goes into the public space, is somewhat inadequate. It'll work for now. The board could continue reviewing and considering revocable permits, given the language that we have. And then at a time that it is appropriate to amend the language, we could do something that would address these sorts of issues for more permanent structures. Nevertheless, the Planning Commission did consider this, and they recommended approval with the conditions that the town clerk have proof of payment for the attorney fees, because the applicant agreed to pay for review, provide proof of adequate insurance as specified. We will have this resolution notarized and signed by the mayor, and this revocable permit, I need everyone to understand, would expire December 31st because it is a license and they all expire December 31st. It's imperfect. So the Board of Trustees will establish the annual permit fee, which has a range of $100 to $400. And since it is a resolution every year, the fee could be reconsidered until we fix that language and we have something for longer term.
Right, so we have 2 questions before us. The first question is if we're going to approve this irregular portion, which should be actually into the right of way. And the second question is fees of a revocable permit if we do approve the irregularity. Board, do you have any questions about what's in front of us? I have to see who's meowing at me. I never know. Board, if you have no questions further from Julia, I would move that we approve the irregularity with the revocable permit.
Second.
If there's no further questions, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 And that motion passes. I would further move that we set the fee at the least possible of $100, and knowing that this is one of those many items that we need to consider going forward. And that's a motion.
I'll second that.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 That passes. Julia, further, was there anything else that the Planning Commission recommended?
I wanted to get clarification, Madam Mayor, that your motion included the conditions that were established, or no?
Yes, I would vote that they include the conditions established for it. Are we in agreement with that?
Yes.
All right.
Item.
So I think that item is passed and on its way.
Indeed. I have one more.
All right. Oh, and this is the grading that includes the letter that we got today? It may be. I think Julia froze.
Okay. This is
Okay, Julia, I think you're back. But we can't hear you. Yeah, can't make it work. Victory, there you go. Let Julia speak.
okay. And this week we get new equipment. So Victor, if you can drive on this one, because I think too many things open kills my computer, I'd appreciate it. This is, so initially the Planning Commission received these items, which was for a single family home, a grading permit with erosion control plan, and a driveway permit at their last meeting, which was on August 11th. No, I'm sorry, July 28th. And the minutes were approved August 11th, and they are available in your packet tonight. So a grading permit of this nature for an entire single family home requires that the Board of Trustees review and approve an erosion control plan after the on-call engineer has reviewed it. So, okay, so they made recommendations. So the draft grading ECP was reviewed by the on-call engineer after it went to the Planning Commission, which made a recommendation of conditions 1 through 6 in the staff report, the PC staff report. So the erosion control plan was done in a draft form and then edited by an engineer and then updated by the applicant's engineer. The applicant, the future homeowner and the builder is here tonight to answer any questions on this, because as I like to say, at least 9 times a day, I am not an engineer. Staff received one email from a neighboring resident, Mr. Fritz Kirsch, who goes by George, who lives at 11075 Falls Avenue, asking about the proposed septic design. Victor, if you can go back and show the footprint overhead of the overall design, that would be helpful. Mr. Kirsch is concerned about the proximity, thank you, the proximity of the septic, the leach field and the septic to the property lines, and therefore hit the adjacent property and his home. During the public testimony, the Planning Commission chair made it clear, and I think this is important to note, that neither the Planning Commission nor the Board of Trustees approves anything having to do with septic. Nevertheless, I think these concerns, our advisory body and our elected officials like to hear these concerns. Mr. Kirsch also sent testimony for this meeting and the board received it. It will go in the record, and I'm happy to pull that up. But he does ask some specific questions about percolation tests and the soils and what would be the equivalent of a full geo report. I don't receive those things, and El Paso County has not responded to his request for those. Some of the recommendations, let's see, so the Planning Commission recommended conditions for approval, some of which have been satisfied since the July 28th meeting. The on-call engineer reviewed condition 4 and responded in an email. The ground to the north side of Iona Trail slopes away from the street with no existing drainage swale. No flows need to be conveyed under the proposed driveway because part of the driveway permit involved whether or not a culvert was necessary, and the board would be deciding on that. Nevertheless, the on-call engineer made a recommendation that it is not necessary. The red line versions are available for the board to review. My recommendation, staff's recommendation, that are based on the Planning Commission's recommendation is that the applicant works with Public Works and the town manager to establish a designated route that crews will use to access the subject property, and submit any temporary road closures to the marshal's office. And the applicant submit an authorized statement of financial responsibility as required in 17-92D, that they have business licenses because we need those, and that proof of payment for the on-call engineering services are paid prior to zoning approval.
Well, I agree with your recommendations. Mr. Kirsch's letter does make me curious as to what the septic plan, leach field plan, if those have been approved by El Paso County, and the areas in which they're placed. I think it would be fair to the letter writer and his neighbors to make sure that those questions are answered. Board, do you have further comment?
Is standard procedure for the health department to approve septic systems? Do they have to approve a septic system before one can be built?
I mean, that would make sense, but I don't know that. Julia, do you know that?
I'm sorry, Trustee Guthrie cut out there.
So,
Is it standard procedure for the health department to approve septic systems prior to them being built?
That's my understanding. I believe that El Paso County, the engineer, has to sign off on them. And I think that Mr. Cantrell may be better able to answer the specifics on the timing with the
Is this something that has come up with other properties?
the timing of the septic and the approval. El Paso County signs off on that prior to building it, but I don't coordinate with El Paso County on the septic. So I think that possibly Mr. Cantrell could answer some questions about where he is with the El Paso County engineers and his own engineers for the septic.
Mr. Cantrell, are you on? And can you answer that question for us, please?
Yeah, I'm on. Thank you for your time tonight. So the way that this works is there are, regulations, codes, required by El Paso County's Environmental Health Department that we have to meet, standards that we have to meet in order to put in a septic system. In this case, this septic system was designed by an engineer. The soils were analyzed at a lab, and the percolation rates were determined to meet the requirements of El Paso County Health Department in order to get a building permit. We're not allowed as a general contractor to even build. They won't even consider our permit unless we meet the requirements that El Paso County has. that we submit a stamped engineering plan and design for the septic system, and it is approved. Our permit has been approved, and Kat, who's down at Environmental Health, has actually toured the site with my engineer to guarantee that our septic system will work on the site. In this case, we meet all the requirements that the building department has and the environmental health department has, and they are far more qualified than I to determine if this is a public health concern or not. And in this case, they've approved our permit.
Thank you. Would it be possible that you could secure some sort of note from them just so that it can go into the file with our planner and they can share it with the neighbors, because the neighbors are having that sort of concern? I think that would clear up a lot of worries from the neighbors' part.
I can submit the approved septic permit to Julia.
I think that would be very helpful and a good neighbor effort to do that.
Mr. Cantrell, pardon me. I apologize.
Go ahead.
Mr. Cantrell, if you also, anything that went to El Paso County, perhaps the PERC test or any of the geo soils tests, that I think that Mr. Kirsch would appreciate that.
Sure, I'd be happy to give them to you, Julia.
Thank you.
All right, so the question in front of us is the approval of the grading permit.
I'm surprised that a culvert isn't recommended. It seems like Iona is really just has lots of problems with erosion. And this just seems like it would add to that.
Trustee Guthrie, part of what we're trying to do is work with Public Works and the builders to make sure that any properties and the construction of any properties don't damage the public right-of-way. And that spot is particularly tricky. And that's why I did pose the question separately to the engineer about the culvert. And his recommendation is that no culvert is necessary because of the, I believe it's because of the way the driveway is graded or angled. And so we've had 3 engineers, I think, review this, and then an additional septic and the El Paso County engineer. So there have been no shortage of engineers, and one of my recommendations is an authorized statement of financial responsibility for erosion control. So I've tried to do my best within the confines of the code to make a recommendation that limits our potential liability. Nothing's a guarantee.
Mm-hmm. Is there a way of enforcing the erosion control plan?
So part of that is the statement of financial responsibility. The board is always welcome per the code to recommend a site visit from an engineer to ensure that the erosion control plan is being implemented on time and appropriately.
Thank you.
So the question before us is the approval of the grading permit. I would move to approve with the conditions set forth by staff.
I'll second.
Board, is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
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 That motion carries. And Mr. Cantrell, thank you for the cooperation in getting those documents together. That will be a big help, I think. Item 5A, Advisory Board Membership Applications. Victor, this one is you. I'll start by asking a question. How many vacancies do we have for both Parks, Rec, and Trails and for the Planning Commission?
There are 2 spots still on both. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. In the interest of time, board, I would move that Lamar Matthews and Gregory Williamson, who both applied for PC and are the only applicants for PC, be appointed to the Planning Commission.
A second?
Board, is there any discussion on this? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, Lamar and Gregory, you are now on the Planning Commission. Before we go down the trail of Parks, Rec, and Trail, I have a suggestion, and this is a suggestion for board discussion. We'll see what you think about it. I think in recognition of Dick Bratton's knowledge and his activity on many, many committees, I would like to appoint that Dick become special liaison or special consultant for institutional knowledge. And that would keep him from being assigned to a single committee, but it would allow several committees to draw on his knowledge and his experience as they so desired. And I should probably ask Dick first what you think about that, since I'm just talking about you.
You have to unmute yourself, Mr. Bratton.
Okay, got it. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I'm not working for Verizon.
I can even see you now.
I appreciate, Jane, your recognition of my expertise so I can help more than one committee. But I'd like to have a seat on the Parks Committee because most of my experience with parks and trails applies to that one committee more than any other.
Well, I recognize your desire for that. I still don't know what the rest of the board is going to say because we have a lot of applicants, but I did want to float that out there for you. So, board, we have several applicants, many with varying levels of expertise. Victor, have any of the applicants approached you with any questions?
No. Jay and Jeremy are both part of the Trails Ambassadors. And they just both seemed interested in serving further. Rebecca and Jesse and Dick all emailed me their applications. Well, Rebecca actually walked in and handed it to me. But no.
And the only question, board, with Jesse is he is a part-time resident, and I don't know what your view is on that. Other than that, I will entertain any and all discussion on these applicants.
I have a question, Victor. Are any of the applicants who applied for Parks, Rec, and Trails, are any of them interested in fire mitigation, or are they only interested in Parks, Recs, and Trails?
I think Dick Bratton has actually expressed some interest in fire mitigation, but as for the other four, they've only talked about Parks, Rec, and Trails.
Okay. And
But they are also, I believe, some of them are in the call, so they also might be able to answer those questions too.
Okay.
Going through the list here. Gianni, you're the liaison here for Parks, Rec, and Trail. I'm just interested in what your opinion is, or shall we poll our applicants?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear from the applicants that are on tonight, so they have a chance to speak in person.
All right. Jay, are you on?
I do not see Jay's name on. He does work a lot. He's a very busy man.
He does work a lot. Jeremy White, are you on? I don't see Jeremy. Jesse's here though. I saw Jesse. Jesse, you want to address the group a little bit about your interest in being on Parks, Rec, and Trails?
Sure. I've been involved with the Parks and Trails activities for the last 15 years and have a continued interest in it. And so I think I'll participate on the committee whether I'm a member or not. It just seems like that was a good place for me to interject some of my knowledge.
Appreciate that. Rebecca, do you have a statement you'd like to make?
Yes, I do. I'm not interested in any other committee because all of my expertise is pretty much with Parks, Rec, and Trails all through my life. So that's the one that it would be important for me to be on. And I think Dick Bratton would be a wonderful addition to that group.
All right, thank you. And Dick did speak briefly. Ford, you've also read the applications of Jay and Jeremy. I'm actually tired of hearing myself talk because I have talked the whole time. So I would love for somebody to take the lead on this, and I don't care if we do a pro con or you just nominate somebody, but we need to select 2 for Parks, Rec, and Trails.
Just to clarify, are these the only applicants that are current? I know that there were some from the prior meeting. Have those withdrawn? What are the status of those applications?
Yeah, these are the ones that are current. The others were withdrawn.
Okay. So, I mean, just from reading the applications and hearing from people, it sounds like Jesse, Rebecca, and Dick have the most experience. It sounds like Jay and Jeremy are very interested, but I didn't see a lot of experience prior to the application, at least that was listed on the application. So just for having institutional knowledge, we're in a time of transition. My recommendation would be to pick the people that have more experience working with trails and parks.
Well, I would like to see Jesse be on. He brings a different perspective for our Parks and Rec and Trails. Also, one thing I'd like to say is I really appreciated when Rebecca came forth and actually had suggestions when we were looking at if we needed to close the trails or not. And I thought that sort of thinking outside the box, but within our confines, was helpful, and I appreciated that thinking. Margaret?
You know what? Yeah, I read through the different applicants, and Rebecca was definitely one of my ones that was definitely pro, just because of agreement with proposals and really feeling like these are things that can be accomplished. But my other person that I was kind of leaning towards is Jeremy White, and not necessarily because of institutional knowledge, but because he's newer to the community. He's willing to step up and volunteer. In his application, he said new perspectives. And maybe somebody with fresh eyes looking in might be able to help us too, because we have to remember it's not all about trails, it's about parks, rec, and trails. And I just think that maybe sometimes a newer person might have a different opinion too. And that was the only thing that I came out of for like my top two. And then my third would be Jesse, because he definitely has institutional knowledge. I know that he's a worker, and I know that he can definitely get things done. So yeah.
Catherine?
I'm really happy to see all these applicants and the willingness to step up and volunteer. That's really encouraging and exciting, especially with the start of this new committee. I like the points that Margaret has made. I feel bad that we can't talk to Jay or Jeremy this evening. It's hard to get a good idea of who they are just from paper, and that's just the nature of an application, I guess. But and I also appreciate the input that we've received from Rebecca, especially over the last couple of months. Jesse's a joy to work with. As far as I know, there's nothing prohibiting him from serving as a part-time resident. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not that I know of, but I've been wrong on lots of things. Full disclosure, Jay Kita is my neighbor, and I know he would be passionate about this because he is on the trails all the time. And he is part of the ambassador program, and it really has a passion for him. So what we have, again, is 5 people that we would like to appoint to everything, and we can't.
Right.
We have to pick 2.
Yeah, pick 2. The only person that I think is currently on the committee, besides Gianni, is Goody. And I am curious, I mean, this is always an awkward question, but it's a question of who do you think would fill a gap that you might have on that committee? Or do you know enough to know yet, Goody?
Sorry, trying to unmute. I don't. However, when I was looking at Jesse popped out right away. I haven't met him, but I have heard a lot about him. So his name definitely popped out. Rebecca's name also popped out at me. I've seen her involved in the last couple meetings. And I mean, initially not knowing really anybody besides Dick personally. Initially I was looking at Jay and Jeremy just because they were the top 2 on the list. I mean, it was really nothing more than that. If Jay works a lot, I do kind of have an issue with that. I don't want work to become an issue. So my top 3 right now are Jeremy, Jesse, and Rebecca, which I think that seems to be the general consensus. So am I helping? Probably number 1 would go to Jesse. And then I'm really split on Jeremy or Rebecca. I do agree with Margaret on Jeremy's new to town. He is coming in. He's got a different set of, he's looking at things with a new perspective and a fresh look. I do like that. But again, yeah, Jeremy and Rebecca, I'm kind of torn on. Jesse, I've heard good things about him.
Well, thanks, Goody. I appreciate that. Kind of lost my focus on this because it's so hard. I would like to reiterate what was said earlier. Whether you are on a committee or not, whether you're on the voting side or not, every person can continue to participate, and I would encourage that. I cannot tell you how many times we have been to a board meeting, and because someone has a well thought out argument, they have a good idea, they have a different perspective, you definitely see the board taking it in and ideas change. So no matter how this vote goes, I would encourage everyone to continue to participate, because it's very valuable. Don't think that because you're on one side of the table or another that your opinion is not heard, because that's really quite valuable. It always has been. I would vote that Jesse Strew be appointed to Parks, Rec, and Trails.
Second.
All those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 Well, the ayes have it for Jesse for sure. That brings it down to one more. Danny, do you see any one of these people having the information to fill a gap in your committee?
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying about the remaining candidates. I do think that Dick Bratton has a lot of knowledge and a lot of ties to the community that I think could be really helpful. He's got a lot of knowledge about the trail system and about the town in general. So, you know, whether I think he would be a valuable addition if he's not chosen by the other, you know, by the board members, then I think that we need to find a way for him to be included as part of that, because he's, you know, he just has so much information. Jeremy, you know, and Jay, I met them both during the ambassadors meeting. I think they have a lot of energy, a lot of, you know, a lot of passion for the outdoor space. But I don't have a lot of information about them apart from those interactions. So again, I guess my preference would be between Rebecca and Dick, just because they're here tonight. We're able to hear more from them. They have more listed on their application, and I think they have more institutional knowledge that could help out.
All right, I appreciate that. I'm just trying to make this the least uncomfortable way to vote among the candidates.
Sure.
Pardon me?
Yeah, and I just want to say that because there are a limited number of spots with this committee for voting members, but the meetings are open and we want ideas and suggestions from everyone. So everyone, you know, who isn't picked is welcome to join in and continue to contribute. I'm actively seeking those opinions and that feedback. I also want to point out that we don't have, you know, fire mitigation, especially right now with what's been going on in the news, is really, really important. So people who are not elected to Parks, Recs, and Trails, if they have any interest in fire mitigation, I think it's, you know, a really, really valuable thing that we as a community need to be working on. So I just want to put that out there too.
I agree. It's a big one, and it's almost one that's hard to get off the ground because the big ideas are hard to put your mind around, although we've been working at it for some time. I'll do it this way. Board, do we have a nomination for Jay Kita? Seeing none. Board, do we have a nomination for, well, this is still awkward. A nomination for Jeremy White? Margaret, was that you nominating him? No?
I'd like to nominate Rebecca.
All right.
I'd like to second that.
All those in favor of Rebecca, vote by saying aye.
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 Aye. Well, Rebecca is on the committee. Board, my offer still stands. Dick Bratton, think about it if you would like to become a our institutional knowledge rep. I think we'd still like to be able to call on you for that institutional knowledge. Jesse Stroop, Rebecca Ochke, you are now on Parks, Rec, and Trails.
Thank you.
All right, thank you everybody who applied. Keep participating.
Could we reach out to the other applicants to see if they may be interested in one of the other positions? Because we also have what was the other one? the Board of Adjustment too.
Board of Adjustments, that's also on the list. So Victor, if you would reiterate those invitations, and I would love to see fire mitigation in particular get some traction.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. Muni and lodging memo. Victor, would you like to present this?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry. This one's me. Sorry. Victor just put this memo together, this lovely memo together, though. So Muni and Lodging Revs is ready to go. The system is live and we're getting ready to roll it out right now. First, I'd like to thank Julia and Victor for being the most integral staff members for getting this project to where it is, to the rollout point. Starting off, just tell you a little bit about, or everyone a little bit about what Muni and Lodging Revs is, who they are as a company. They're Colorado based. Their system was designed by a longtime finance director who faced a lot of the same challenges that we have been with licensing and tax collection. So this system will be primarily for short-term rental licensing, business licensing, and lodging tax remittance. So all the state and county lodging tax and all sales tax will still go through the state. They have a customer service line. It's an 800 number, but it is to a team of professionals in Colorado, a small team of professionals in Colorado that are well in tune with our community. So you're not calling someone that's halfway across the world. We're gonna have information out on the webpage about this sometime later this week. All short-term rental owners will be part of the first phase rollout of this project. They'll get the first wave of letters, that first wave of emails, and they'll be able to log in to their online account once they receive that. But until that letter or email is received, it has a special code in it. They won't be able to link up to their online account that's specific to them without that code. So everyone will just want to hang tight until they receive that code. And like I said, it's going to come out in 2 phases. First phase comes out to the short-term rental owners. It's about 44 letters. The second phase, it'll roll out to the business owners for business license renewals. And also, in that part of that first phase, the short-term rental owners who have listings that are not licensed will also receive a letter, and we'll start moving through the revenue collection for that. This should boost our revenues here September to December. We'll see a little boost. And just in general, improved enforcement with that, the sales lodging tax and business licensing. And it should streamline the process for everyone, making it a lot easier to apply for a license, to get a license. The wait time will be almost none. Anyway, so there's going to be more information on the website. A couple more days, it'll roll out. Folks are going to get emails. Folks are going to get a paper letter in the mail with FAQs. There'll be a link to this on our website later this week. And we're really excited about this. And thanks to Julia and Victor for doing a lot of work on the back end to get this going. That's all there is.
I think that's great. I think it's been a long time coming, and I think it will help everybody out just to get it much more streamlined and in some ways more fair. Everybody will be on the same page with what they're doing. So I appreciate that. Thank you for putting this all together. Item 6 is public input. Please limit your conversation to 3 minutes per speaker. Typically, we can't respond, although we can refer to staff if possible. So Victor, it is up to you to call on who has signed up.
Well, first up is Dick Bratton. Please state your name and address for the public record.
Okay.
Dick, we can't hear you, so you're gonna have to unmute yourself. There you
Starting.
go.
My name is Dick Bratton. I'm at 11190 Hondo Avenue for 37 years. I'd like to point out that there's been some loosening of big bucks by both GOCO and other sources for fire mitigation. Also, the Mile High Youth Corps program director told me today that they're going to do a lot more mitigation work with Mile High Youth Corps. So there's opportunities for the town to do more mitigation in the town that we should probably take advantage of. That means writing a grant request to GOCO and contacting Mile High Youth Corps to schedule them for next year. I'd be glad to help on that.
That would be great, Dick. Let's talk about that a bit offline and see what we can get going with fire mitigation, if it's grant writing or youth corps. You already have a good contact with them. So let me look into GOCO and see what their grant process looks like, and let's see what we can get off the ground with that.
They did allocate a great deal of money, millions, toward fire mitigation. So the time is right to apply. And we usually do pretty well on GOCO requests because we're a small town with a small budget. So I encourage that action be taken to start writing a grant right away.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Thank you.
And speaking of grants, I think the town needs to start writing grant requests.
Good. I have information for you on that, so we'll follow up in reports. That's timely.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list for public input is Rocco Blasi. Please state your name and address for the official record.
Hi, Rocco Blasi, 10955 Belvedere Ave. A few things tonight. Trustee Lou, I appreciate you suggesting that Green Mountain Falls not take a stance on the national popular vote issue. There's no reason the trustees should be using valuable time to address this larger political issue, especially when you were looking at applicants for the vacancies. And you mentioned that you still need to get a handle on fire mitigation. So let's treat the priorities. I'm with Trustee Guthrie in that many people have issues with the status quo of the Electoral College. Second thing, the open space triangle on Olathe. Most see it as they enter town, totally agree. They also see the big dirt pile and boulders sitting back there blocking what should be parking. There is vegetation growing on that dirt pile. It's been there so long. So let's try to use the same methodology. People see that as they come into town, and that there's been many requests to have that addressed, and it hasn't been. Finally, a couple questions, and I ask for answers. What's the status of filling the town clerk vacancy? And meantime, who's fulfilling the duty of the designated election official? I'll stand by for a response, please.
We can direct that to staff. And I know that staff is going to have some report on that following.
Okay.
So, do you want to address that in your report, Angie?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, I think both of those things are being addressed. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on public comment list is Mr. Clay Gafford. If you would please state your name and address for the official record.
7045 Oak Street. And today I have more questions about or Maple Street Bridge there, I see the town's dump truck, the town's backhoe, the town's employees are over there working on the project. They're digging out the gravel there, the good road base. It's being hauled to the top of the mountain and dumped at the eyesore up by the Mount Dewey trailhead. And I know for a fact that the town buys an awful lot of gravel every year, and we're taking gravel there and dumping it on private property. And this was a capital project that was bid out. I don't understand why the town, the employees and equipment is over there, and the general contractor is running the town's equipment. I don't know what the RFP, when this project went out to bid, but I don't suspect that it said you can use the town's equipment and employees. And if the other contractors who bid the project took that into consideration, and it's just a question, I might be off base, it might be all stuff that was negotiated out, but why are we so involved with the town employees working on a project that was a bid project? We should have nothing to do with it.
As I understand it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Angie, that was part of our portion. It was I can't think of the words right now. It's escaping me.
Yes, as
Road
part
to
of,
match grant?
to help keep the costs down, they were allowed to use some of our equipment. That way they didn't have to rent that additional equipment. And what they are doing with that equipment is part of the project. We did have a PM, our PM has been watching that project closely. That's Andre Bracken with Wilson and Company. He's a third-party project engineer. He designed the project and is following it closely. He did do a site visit the other day. Everything's moving along, but that's what I got. If you have any other questions, let me know, Jane.
Were the other contractors who bid this project aware of this knowledge that you could use the town's equipment when they put their bid in so they could keep their number lower?
You know, I'm pretty sure that, I don't know everything that's in the RFP, but it is allowed that he's using our equipment. It's part of the contract negotiation piece.
And the other contractors were made aware of it. It doesn't seem right that we have and what about our manpower? Why are they over there driving the trucks? And why is the dirt going to private property and not to the town's yard for being stockpiled?
Well,
I believe that the contractor owns the property where the dirt was going to.
No, as I understand it, the dirt's going over there to what is town property next to on Olathe there. That's Olathe.
No, it went to the top of the hill, Jane, right up by the Mount Dewey Trail. I watched him driving the truck up there multiple times the other day.
Okay, I don't
Town
know.
employees driving it up there.
Well, I'm sure
It
Angie
just
will.
doesn't sound like we're being transparent here about what's going on. And if the other contractors were aware of it, and if that's not correct, that's bid rigging, and that's not right. I just want to make sure of what we're doing.
So Clay, I'm gonna just tell you right here that we can talk about this tomorrow if you'd like. I'm happy to look into a complaint like this, but I prefer it come to me direct rather than.
Angie, I sent you an email and asked you to please get back with me last week, and I never heard anything
I did
back.
not see your email. If I saw your email, I would have
I
got.
left a voicemail to
like
call
this.
you as well.
I did not receive a
That's
voice
fine. We can talk about
or
this
an
later.
email.
All right, who is next, Victor?
Next on the list is Lamar Matthews. If you'd please state your name and address for the official record.
The host is not allowing participants to unmute themselves.
Well, I can hear you, so you must be able to.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm just looking at what it says. All right. Thank you. I will just cede my time. Everything that I needed has been addressed or will.
All right, sounds good.
That is the end of public comment.
All right. So item 7 is correspondence. Board, you have received all of these, as I believe. If you have any you would like to bring out for conversation, you certainly can, or we can move to reports. Does anyone on the board like to bring out any one item for discussion?
I don't want to bring out an item for discussion, but I think we need some clarification on what the deadline for submission is, because it seems like there were a few people that were upset that some of these correspondence items weren't included in the last board packet, but it's because they were received after the packet had been sent out. So can we clarify exactly what the deadline is for anything to be in tonight's record compared to it being passed on to the next week's record or to the next meeting's record?
So we try to get the agenda out on Thursday or Friday the week prior. We can put things in the agenda up to 24 hours before the meeting. We see it, but we have to have it legally posted a minimum of 24 hours before the public meeting.
So what deadline do you want to set for submission so that it can be included? Like maybe 4 o'clock?
The ideal deadline would be 2 o'clock on the Thursday prior to the meeting.
All right. Board, anything further on correspondence? Seeing none, let's move to reports. My reports are as follows. First of all, we have fielded numerous conversations, complaints, ideas, discussions that revolve around the comprehensive plan. The comp plan, by and large, is considered to be a 10-year plan. If you look at our history and if you look at plans in general. In our comprehensive plan, I counted 39 objectives about improving the town, along with numerous suggestions. They weren't all delineated in the same way as the objectives. And I wanted to address some of the ideas that the board isn't following the comp plan. So let me follow along here with just some of the things I pulled out. First of all, the board is working on a signage plan and a parking plan. So those things have been addressed with a grant, and additionally, the facilitator has already begun his work of soliciting comment on those. We expect the parking and signage plans to take place in the summer. And again, we have secured grant money on that. That is very much of a public process, but the facilitator has just started his work. We have started repairing bridges. This is the improvement of the infrastructure. It is happening now. It is part of the flood money, and it's improvement of 2 bridges that were damaged, and we are taking care of this now. We are in the midst, and by we, I mean Gianni and Catherine, of writing grants for this sidewalk that will link Town Hall and the lake, and this would include grants for lake improvements and improvements for ADA access in our parks and around the lake. Those are 3 different projects, but they're all linked and they're all part of ADA and improvements. We've made improvements to Town Hall with electronic access. That's including applications and tracking STRs. That is done. Money is secured for the mitigation of sediment into the lake. So the money is secured, and now we need to start working with PPRTA on getting that implemented and how to get it implemented. There's a lot to that project. Annexation is started, and this includes trails. It also includes an education center. It's ADA compliant. It will have restrooms and public art. That's for the fall of 2020. So that is well underway. Training for all government officials. This is done 3 times already in the last year. We have 1, possibly 2 trainings scheduled for September. And this is for all government officials. This is for elected and for appointed. It was suggested that both sheriff's offices in Teller County and El Paso County coordinate with our marshal's office for coverage. That is done. We have a planner hired. That is done. Zoning and land use ordinances are being investigated for updates and improvements. That has started. It will be ongoing. We do have finances secured, and that is also a public process with the code rewrite. Those are just a few things that we have done, and they will be done, and we're in the process of. And out of 39, we're at 13 or 14, and I think that's a pretty great start. I will say this about our staff: incredibly resilient, because when you look at the obstacles we faced, suddenly we were put into working remotely and often on secondhand electronics, and the staff has just done really a good job through this. And that is my report. Margaret?
I have nothing to report on. Thank you.
Catherine?
I have nothing to report. I just also want to express my appreciation to the staff. I know a lot of things are in motion, and looking forward to supporting those efforts, and thank you.
Gianni?
I just wanted to thank all of the volunteers who came out and agreed to help volunteer for our ambassador program. We had a good turnout. There were 9 people that agreed to kind of help start up the program. A big thank you to the Trails and Open Space Coalition for helping to train and get us started. So I think where we are with that right now is we've kind of have a good group of people that have an orientation on how to provide positive interactions with our hikers and people who are visiting on our trails. The kind of next step is we wanted to make sure that all of the volunteers had identification so that it could kind of smooth over the transition when approaching people who are visiting. And so the volunteers agreed upon t-shirts. So we're trying to get them t-shirts, and then we're going to help having people out interacting, and really a lot of the programs can be shaped by the volunteers' feedback, what they're seeing, how do we need to shape it to help support them and help support the community. So it's kind of an ongoing project, but we're open to feedback from community members as well as our volunteers about how it's going. So you should be seeing some of those interactions rolling out fairly soon. The other thing I wanted to bounce off of is just the mention of the grant related to ADA accessibility. So this was a project that had been mentioned, it sounds like, for several years as a project that was trying to be established, creating an ADA accessibility to the lake, basically. And so I encourage everyone who was interested in the PRT committee and people who are just interested in that particular project as well as other projects, join our PRT meeting. I believe, Victor, it's scheduled for 7 o'clock this Thursday. Correct me if that's wrong, but we're wanting to get feedback, a vision for what can be included in the grant. So I want to encourage everyone to join that meeting. With the ADA project, one of the things that can help is having letters from the community members in support of needing access like that. So if anyone is interested in helping to kind of support a grant for that type of project, feel free to contact me and definitely join in on that meeting so you can hear more.
Hey, thank you so much. Let me echo that again. Heard a lot of good things about the ambassador committee. You look like you have a good turnout. I think people are pretty excited about that. And I will write a letter of support for the grant because that is a great project. Angie, do you have a report, please?
Sure. I just have a couple notes here. I did put out in the correspondence there The monthly staff reports from January to date to July. The August report will be coming to the trustees and the press tomorrow. I just wanted to put that out there. I'm not sure that all those had gotten in previous agendas. So also right now going on, we've got the Maple Street project. They'll be moving over to Midland soon. Updates on that are on Facebook. So new update coming on that pretty soon. Water on Mars is working on that project. Everything, is on the up and up with that project. If it's not, that'll be dealt with operationally. I certainly will look at the concerns and address any, if there are any to be had. Over the next couple of months, you will see Public Works bringing in some road base. We were able to save some of our PPRTA money so that we could bring road base in and put that down in a couple of the zones this year and then a couple zones next year. So that's a really positive development. A lot of our roads are pretty washed out. We're finalizing our 2019 audit. Tomorrow, the drafting of the 2021 budget begins. That's an all-day meeting. Our signage and parking plan process kicked off today. The consultant reached out to the stakeholders group. So just a note for the community, we should be seeing a community survey. There'll be a letter to the community and a community forum coming someday really soon. So really looking forward to that public process. Today, that lake valve regulator project was approved, so that'll be moving here before winter. We've got lots of great grant apps, great projects going on. And a big thank you to Catherine and Deani for drafting up that ADA grant. Just looking forward to that board retreat also on September 15th. A couple other grant opportunities out there. GOCO has $15 million in money that the PRT could potentially utilize. We could probably find some matching funds. We just need to do a good look and do some finagling. There's some grant opportunities out there for a Main Street program. So that's like a downtown revitalization. And maybe we could couple that with the ADA and use each of them as matching funds. Be a little creative, but maybe we could pull it off. That's all I got.
Great, thank you. Virgil, do you have a report for us?
Nothing really other than what's stated on my monthly report. We do have one of my reserves that's down right now. He had knee surgery, and as a result of the knee surgery, he fell and put his hand on a stump and it tore out all the ligaments in his wrist. So he's dealing with that surgery now and coming back in. We are moving one of the flashing 25-mile-an-hour signs around so that it's more visible before you actually get into town. It's still within the 25-mile-an-hour zone, but we're going to be moving that Friday, hopefully, with the help of Public Works and changing that around. That's about it. It's been an interesting month.
Always is.
Hey, Mayor, follow-up question to the town manager about the clerk.
I was just going to suggest that too, that we forgot about that.
Yeah, so we do have applications for the clerk position. That is an open search right now. And so I've got a couple of preliminary interviews set up for that, but we'll be moving forward through that process here shortly.
And in the meantime, who's fulfilling the duty of the designated election official?
I guess that would fall back to me. We have hired Judy Egbert in the past. We don't have an election for another 2 years, so I haven't really looked at the election official stuff.
There's been requests from some members of the public for formatting for a recall petition that have gone unanswered.
I have not seen any of those requests.
I find that difficult to believe.
Victor, do you have any report?
I have nothing to report at this time. Thank you.
All right. Board, if there is nothing further, I would move that we adjourn this meeting at 8:54.
Second that.
Working? All right, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned.